This morning, I'm just going to pick up from where we left off last week. So if you weren't with us last week, I've tended to start September with a very short, 2-week preaching series. It's been a practice of mine for years. So last week and this week sort of hang together, and we're just looking at what I call words for the journey. And we've picked up this little story in the book of Exodus, where the ancient Israelite people have been rescued from Egypt, and they're at Mount Sinai, a famous mountain in the desert, and they're about to journey on to what is called the Promised Land. And it's right in that juncture that Moses cries out to God. He's feeling overwhelmed, and they're about to go on this journey, and he's just sort of like, God, help me. And I referenced Bilbo last week. I'll do it again briefly. The Israelites are about to set out on a long, unexpected journey, kind of like Bilbo does, if you're familiar with that story. And his quote is, "It's a dangerous business going out your door. You step into the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to." And so I know bits and pieces of some, maybe many of your stories, but only bits and pieces. And I'm not sure entirely what journey you're on. But I know some of your journeys and some of the pieces of that journey. Some people are navigating very complex, difficult things personally. Health challenges, perhaps it's work challenges or relational challenges, or perhaps you're wrestling with questions of faith. I've had conversations on all of those spheres with some of you. Or perhaps it's not a personal journey that's an uphill climb for you this morning. Maybe it's just you're trying to navigate the world, the craziness of our world that we live in this moment. And it just feels like, I don't know if it's crazier, it just feels crazier. And you're just trying to sort out, how do I actually sort of journey through this space? And we're going back to this story in Exodus. Moses is about to embark on a complex journey. And that journey has all kinds of difficulties. It will prove to be a difficult journey, actually, from Mount Sinai to the Promised Land. And there's all kinds of pressures from within, from the people themselves, and there's all kinds of pressures from without, from the surrounding cultures that press in on them. And Moses at this juncture is feeling overwhelmed. And I want to pick up the dialogue that he has with God in Exodus chapter 33. It's the same text we looked at last week. Exodus 33, beginning at verse 12. Moses said to the Lord, "Look, you have been telling me, lead these people. But you have not let me know whom you will send with me. You said, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me. Now, God, if you are pleased with me, teach me your ways so that I may know you and continue to find favor with you. Remember that this nation, these people, are your people." And the Lord replied, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." And then Moses said to him, "If your presence does not go with us, don't send us up from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all of the other people on the face of the earth?" And then the Lord said to Moses, "I will do the very thing you've asked, because I am pleased with you, and I know you by name." So at this juncture where Moses and the people are about to embark on this difficult and uphill climb, so to speak, God speaks, and he promises them, and we zeroed in on this, he promises them, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." And last week we spoke briefly of the first part of this phrase, my presence. God's presence is with us. I talked briefly about how God's presence is not the same as a solution. God being present with us doesn't mean that life will automatically all work out in your favor. It sometimes doesn't, actually. But what God's presence does does offer is that you're not going through any of that stuff alone. God walks with you. And it's a profound promise. And this morning I want to zero in on the second part of this phrase. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. And I want you to notice something, just a couple quick things, just purely from reading like as you see that structured. Notice that rest is connected to presence. Right? My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. They're connected phrases. You could almost read this is my paraphrase, because my presence goes with you, I will give you rest. It's because God is present with his people that rest becomes possible. Okay? Just note the connection there. And the second thing, just briefly to note, is that God is the one who gives rest. It's gifted. Okay, rest isn't something that I have to manufacture or I have to come up with like some crazy wild ways to find ways to rest. Rest in this promise is gifted. God says, I will give you rest. God will gift rest. And so that already feels like good news to me. That God's presence gives us the gift of rest. But it can be easy to miss what is being offered, because you might do what I often do, which is I read the word rest and I kind of import my definition of that word. So rest for me is often relaxing on the couch, maybe watching a show that I like on Netflix, or enjoying a glass of wine or something like that. Okay, so I've now imported my definition and think that's what God will give me. Time on the couch, watching a good show. Which sounds pretty good. But rest can certainly include that. But I'm going to suggest to you, and we're going to go into this a little bit. We're just going to kind of put on our nerd hat for a moment. And I want to look at the Hebrew word for a moment and just suggest that maybe there's something else going on here. So we're going to look at the word rest biblically, and then I'm going to bring in some psychological pieces to this too. I'm neither a Hebrew scholar nor a psychologist, so full disclosure, but I read in both those veins, and I've learned a little bit. So I just want to share some nuances to this. All right, when God says, I will give you rest, what is being offered here? So biblically, the Hebrew word here is nuah. I don't know. Am I pronouncing that right? Corey, you know a little bit of Hebrew. Nuah. It's got that kind of guttural sound. Yeah? Is that okay? Corey knows a bit more Hebrew than I do, as he teaches in that vein. I don't. Nuah. It literally means to rest or to settle down. A bit like this guy. All right? He's resting. Now, he is kind of collapsing on the couch there. I don't love dogs, but I do love this dog. Like he's really leaning into this. He's resting, he's settling down. The word carries meanings of repose, peace, comfort, quietness. And it can describe the act of resting, of being still, or causing something to rest, or a light, right? Like when you think of like a bird alighting on a tree. Resting on the branch, remaining there, landing on there and remaining. Interesting enough, the word has you've got to put on your nerd hat, it has a causative sense, meaning that it can be understood as to bring about rest or to cause something to rest, which is what is being suggested here. God will give us quietness. God will give us stillness. It's causative. God will provide. God will gift. But what was most fascinating to me in this word study is the root word nuah for rest is the root word for Noah, the biblical patriarch, the guy that, in Noah and the ark, that story. And what gets embedded in this word nuah, to rest, is an image of God protecting his people in the ark, and the ark coming to rest on dry land after the chaos of the flood. It's embedded in this word that God provides respite, and God provides a place of rest for Noah and his family during and after the flood. And now I'm going, oh, this is a little bit more than just relaxing on the couch. You see, this has a much deeper, richer image of being like held and carried, protected, brought to a place of safety and well-being. Right? Do you see that nuance? It's a beautiful picture, actually. So hold on to that, and let me just say a few things about sort of the psychology of rest. What I've been mulling over this some this summer and reading a little bit in this vein. Rest is far more than external, like resting my body. It is that, okay? Collapsing on the couch or getting a good night's sleep or something like that is important. Don't hear anything other. I'm saying it, that matters. But rest is more than that. We also need to rest our mind and our nervous system, our inner being. I can sit on the couch and be physically resting, and my mind could be racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour and not be resting at all. Right? This is actually not only possible, it's quite likely for me. And we're coming to realize, I think, as a culture, that constant stimulation is not good. Like constant hyper-alertness is actually not good for us, and it leads to all kinds of chronic health issues. To always be so engaged, so vigilant, so on all of the time is not okay. It actually, it wears us down. Our mind, as well as our body, our heart, our nervous system, they need to experience deep rest. And this, I think, the Hebrews may not have unpacked it all here, but I think it's implied in this verse. When God says, my presence will go with you and I will give you rest. The rest that's envisioned is holistic. It is your whole being at rest. Every part of you, your physical self, but also your emotional self and your mental self and your spiritual self. You are at rest. What the Bible in other places refers to as stillness. Quiet. Think of the ark resting after the chaos of the flood. It's holistic. It's all of you. And again, I think you can imagine this being a little deeper than just chilling on the couch. Okay, so there's more embedded here than just the word immediately in English alerts us to. Perhaps you need a little story at this point. One of my favorite mystics, that's weird that I have favorite mystics, but one of my favorite mystics is Julian of Norwich. Some of you are like, you have no idea who I'm talking about right now. Lady Julian, she was a 14th century anchorite. She lived in the same place her whole life, the same building actually, her whole life or most of her life. She's most famous for this quote, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. You might have heard that. We've sing songs that are sort of derivatives of this saying. And you think, oh, that's lovely. Or maybe you think it's lovely. I actually think it's lovely. But what I think is really, again, you wouldn't necessarily know this unless you know a little bit about Julian and her world. But what makes this statement so powerful for me is if I remember the context in which she's writing it. So she lived in the 1300s, which were a period of time, if you want to get into it deeply, you can talk to Mark Conard, who knows some things about history. I know this much about history, is that during this period of time when Julian was writing, there was the Black Plague that killed lots of people. They didn't quite understand germ theory back then, and they didn't understand how the plague was being transmitted, and people were dying. Lots of them, I think, if I'm correct, about a third of the population in her town had passed away through the plague. It was during the 100 Years' War, which I don't know a lot about the 100 Years' War, but the fact that it's called the 100 Years' War doesn't sound good to me. It was a period of significant unrest. An archbishop, the Archbishop of Canterbury at the time, was beheaded. That's not good. One of their kings, King Richard II, was murdered. All right? It sounds actually not completely unlike today, to be honest. It's a time of lots of unrest, war and plague, and sadly, assassinations, and just wild stuff. And it's somehow out of that context, she writes these words: all shall be well. All shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Now, I feel like I should say, and it's maybe obvious at this point, Julian isn't just chilling on the couch at this moment. That's something much deeper and much more profound going on for her. This deep sense of well-being comes out of a sense that God is still present to her and the world in which she finds herself. My presence will go with you. Therefore all shall be well. She's at rest. It's fascinating if you read her memoir or her book, her spiritual writings, sometimes known as the Showings or the Divine Revelation of Divine Love. She makes zero mention of the world in which she's growing up in. Like, you don't hear any of the events I've just listed. She doesn't talk about them. She talks about God's presence and God's love. And God is with her. It's profound, I think. Now, our culture is good at a few things, maybe many things. One of the things we are not good at, I might suggest, is resting. And for me, as I think about this, two things this isn't exhaustive, this is just kind of suggestive. I realize that sometimes why I don't rest is because I'm always in a hurry. I'm always looking at my watch, or usually my watch, and I'm bouncing around. I'm like, oh, I got to be somewhere in 15 minutes. And then you do whatever you need to be at 15 minutes, and then you got to be somewhere else, and then somewhere else, and then somewhere else, and then you kind of collapse into bed and get some sleep, and then the cycle goes over, and it never feels like there's enough time to do the things I need to do. And certainly there's not enough time to do the things I want to do. I'm just always kind of chasing time, it feels like. And rest feels elusive, and in my sort of darkest moments, even a waste of time. Like, I don't have time to rest. I've got to do this and this and this and this. I'm trying to push back on that a little bit in my life. I'm aware of that pattern, getting caught up in that. Cities, I think, this is an aside, it's not in my notes, but hopefully I don't get into trouble here. Cities, I think, have a feel about them. So I think you know this. Like, if you go to Toronto, it feels different than Calgary. Like, I think, kind of. Vancouver feels different again, or whatever. Smaller cities feel bigger than bigger cities, all of that. I'm not suggesting to you that every Calgarian out there really values busyness. Like, yeah, let's be busy. Yeah. I'm not suggesting that necessarily as a posture, but Calgary is a busy city. People are always on the go. My framework for how people drive in this city is they want to get here, they want to get there ahead of you. So I don't know really where they're going, and they don't have a clue where I'm going, but they just want to get there ahead of you. It just feels like how that goes. It's just, we're busy. We want to get there faster, quicker. We got more stuff to do. I'm trying to push back on this a little bit in my own life. And two simple practices. And I'm just going to embarrass myself for a moment, so each morning I try to start my day by going literally for a 10-minute walk, like 10 minutes. I have the same route. It's 10 minutes. It might be 11, but it's no more than 11. It's the same walk through my neighborhood. And then I come to work. I'm coming to work a little bit earlier, and I light a candle and I sit in silence for 10 minutes. That's what I'm trying to do. And here's my embarrassing admission to you. It is really hard to be still for 10 minutes. It's just weird. Like, I should be telling you how easy it is and how I get these great revelations from Jesus. And I'm just telling you, it's really hard just to be still. And it brings into focus the second issue here, which I think for me is the bigger issue, which is worry. I can typically find time off. I've been pretty decent at keeping a few days off in the week. Many of you do that as well. I have explored and practiced at lesser and greater degrees of success Sabbath and trying to keep some time guarded. I can typically find that space. In my days, as I'm telling you, I'm finding sort of these little 10-minute increments. I'm getting some traction there, but I can't always turn my mind off. Lots of stuff. And that's one of the things I'm finding as I sit in silence. I'm finding, wow, my mind is just racing. And there's no shortage of things to worry about in our world. We have all kinds of leaders across the world who, at least in my vantage point, feel a little unhinged. And I worry. I just am a little concerned about the weaponry these people have access to, and sort of the rhetoric I hear. And where are we going, actually? And I don't have control over any of that. I just am like, oh, where's this story going? Where's it heading? Obviously, there are wars in different spots on our planet. Some of them, they haven't been 100-year wars, but maybe. They certainly have been long wars. They feel a bit endless. Worry about that. There's lots of dialogue, and regardless of where you fit in this dialogue, there's lots of dialogue around climate change. And whatever you think about that. I worry about the economy. Lots of us worry about the economy. There's clearly deep political division in our culture that is causing significant unrest and people to do just crazy things. I worry about leading this church community and how to do that well. I lose the sleep I do lose, most of it is in that category. I worry about how to use my money and how not to use my money. Did I spend it on the right thing? Should I have saved it more? Have I saved enough? What if? I worry about things that have been disappointing in my life. I worry about my regrets. I can't turn back the dial, but how do I mend those fences? Can I mend those fences? Should I mend those fences? I worry about my kids. I worry about my extended family. I worry about my friends. I worry about my health. I worry about my stuff. It can go on and on and on. And this, by the way, is not a 21st century problem. It's not like worries are new. I mean, maybe the details of what we worry about are new. People in the first century didn't worry about nuclear warfare, but they did worry. And Jesus addresses them directly in the Sermon on the Mount. And I'd like to read you a little section here from Matthew chapter 6. And hear Jesus' words to the people who kind of are in his landscape, or in his landscape, and they're worrying, they're not resting either. They have a different set of challenges living under Roman occupation and trying to make ends meet. Jesus' words, Matthew chapter 6. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? I mean, look, he says, look at the birds. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet, your heavenly Father feeds them. And are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about your clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, oh, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. Rather seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. It was just good to reread that this week. As stuff in my own life is just churning, and then stuff in the world clearly is churning. And I just try each day to just sit quietly for 10 minutes. I just hear the invitation of Jesus saying not to worry. Now, I know it sounds easy, or like, don't worry. Okay. How do you do that? How do you actually do that? Well, a couple things I want to say. First off is remember back to the promise, my presence will go with you and I will give you rest. Rest is a gift. And I ask God, just quiet my mind. Help me. Gift that to me. Gift me stillness, peace, quiet, trust. But also, I think, notice in this text, Jesus doesn't just say, don't worry. He tells us why we shouldn't worry. Your heavenly Father knows. This is the last point I'll make, so I'm wrapping up, so stick with me for 3 more minutes. I've come to understand in the end that to rest is actually a statement of trust. To rest is to trust that God is present and that he knows. He knows about what's going on in my world, my life, my inner being, the questions, the doubts, the fears, the insecurities. He knows what's happening in my relationships, the ones I've handled well, the ones I've maybe not as handled as well, the regrets, the disappointments. He knows about my health, the things I know about, the things I still actually haven't discovered yet about my health or my mental health. He understands my worries for leading this community. He understands the worries that are well beyond me in the larger world around war and division. He knows because he's present. Right? Remember I said presence and rest are connected? Well, God's presence lets me rest. And when I struggle to rest, and again, deep rest, that the full rest of body, heart, mind, this holistic sense of rest, this nuach, this stillness. When I fail to enter that space, my sense is that I've lost sight of either God's presence or God's care. I'm not trying to be judgmental at all. Don't hear that as a judgmental. It's just as I'm trying to pay attention to why do I struggle to rest? Why do I struggle to be still? Just speaking of kind of my experience. And as I struggle to find those spaces, again, probably not exhaustively, but at least part of the reason is that I lose sight of God as present. The very thing that Lady Julian wrote about. All shall be well. Well, it wasn't well in her world, actually. But she finds a wellness. She trusts that she can be well in that space because she's not alone in that space. Because God is with her and she can rest. I've given you this quote before. I go back to it from time to time. one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite theologians. Here it is. It's a bit wordy. He's a theologian. He's Swiss, and that's not a criticism of Swiss people at all. Bea, at all, wherever you are. Swiss people are lovely. It's just that he writes in another language. It gets translated. Anyway, it's all that. That's all I meant. Okay. The whole compact solidity of our creaturely being and essence, and of the everyday world in which we find ourselves and find our bearings, is afloat like a ship above the immense depths of an entirely different element, namely the unfathomable love of the Father. What he's saying when he says the whole compact solidity of our creaturely being and essence, what he means by that statement is everything you are and do. Your being, who you are, where you live, the experience you have, all of it. And of the everyday world in which we find ourselves, which can be a very crazy world in these moments. And we try and find our bearings here, and we're like, what is going on? And von Balthasar suggests that everything that's happening is still afloat. It exists. It's not beyond the unfathomable love of God. Somehow it all, it's held there in ways that clearly I don't fully understand. But can I trust it to be true? That God is present. That God is with me. That I'm not alone. And can I just enter that reality and just possibly even just be a little bit more still, a little bit more quiet, a little bit more in nuach, rest. These were the words given to Moses at the beginning of a daunting journey through the wilderness to the promised land. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. And I set this preaching series out probably 6 months ago, kind of sketched it out. I had no idea the space in life we'd be living but it just feels somehow like it's God's word to us today. As we find ourselves in this moment, both your personal stories, which are very real, and I want to honor them, and the larger cultural stories that are going on. And God's word is, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. I invite you to respond to this in a couple ways this morning as we sit with this promise. I don't know what your road is going to look like. It's going to be, it might turn this way, it might turn that way. I don't know. I can't peer into the future. I don't know how things are going to play out. But here's the invitation. You've been invited to grab a piece of paper and a pen, and if you don't, you're welcome to go grab one in a moment, or you can pull one out of your pocket if you carry that stuff around. It's ideal if you could do it digitally, but it sort of loses its. So I'm going to invite you to actually write something on a piece of paper. So you're going to have, the band is going to come forward. In fact, you guys can already drift your way up here, please. They're going to come, some of them, I think, all of them maybe, are going to come, and they're going to play instrumentally in a moment. And during the instrumental time of this, I'm just going to invite you to name something that keeps you from rest. It may be chronic busyness. You may just have way too much on your plate. Just name it. This is between you and God. And write that down. Or it may be some deep-seated worries and fears that you have. And again, just name it. Write it down. And that's kind of the part of the reflection that you will do during the instrumental. And I'm going to stay up here, and then at a given point, these guys are going to just pause, and then they're going to move into the same song that we've already sang, Rest. And during the singing of that song, you are invited to come and lay that down before the cross. That piece of paper, just fold it in half, put it down at the cross. And then you can pick up from the cross, there's a basket that has this little promise on it. Little promise cards, those of you who still remember what business cards look like and they were a thing. It's the same size as business cards. It'll fit in your wallet if you still carry one of those. Take a picture of it if you carry your phone, all right? put it somewhere where you carry this. But take one. And the invitation here isn't entirely to just lay your worry at the feet of Jesus. Sometimes it's hard to let that go. What I'm inviting you to do is bring your worry to Jesus so that you don't carry it alone. Right? He's carrying it with you. My presence will go with you. And just try and hear Jesus' invitation to find moments of quiet and stillness. So, some quiet time to write down, to reflect. I'll give you the cue that any time after that you can come down and just lay it anywhere at the foot of the cross. If you want, you don't have to. It's invitational, but you can do that in the basket. There's a little thing. I am going to invite you, however you come down, if you could head back to your seat down that far aisle, just in terms of traffic flow. So just as you come, and then just head down that way, okay? So, guys, let's take some moments to reflect on what keeps us from God's rest.